We'll call to order the regular Board of Supervisors meeting for May 1st, 2012. We're going to start with the invocation, and I don't believe Pastor Kim is here, so Supervisor Ball said he would step in for that, and Supervisor Kehoe will do the pledge. You'd all stand.
Let's join together in prayer. Father, thank you so much for this awesome day that you've given us in Shasta County. We just thank you for all the blessings, the many, many blessings that flow our direction. This day, Lord, we ask for your help as we conduct the business of the community. We ask that everything that we say and do would be a blessing to you and honorable. Father, just be with us this day. We ask for your guidance, and we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Ball and Supervisor Kehoe. We'll now move on to the public comment period. Anyone who wishes to speak is given 3 minutes. You need to come before the podium here and give your name. You're allowed 3 minutes to speak. Comments should be limited to the matters within the jurisdiction of the board. Pursuant to the Brown Act, action or board discussion cannot be taken on open time matters other than to receive the comments and, if deemed necessary, to refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up and or to schedule the matter for subsequent board agenda. I don't have any requests to speak. Anybody else wish to come forward? Seeing none, we'll move on to the regular calendar. R1, a proclamation for Older Americans Month. Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Modi. It's my pleasure to read this, a proclamation of the Shasta County Board of Supervisors for Older Americans Month, May 2012. Whereas older adults in Shasta County are among our most treasured resources, united by historical experiences, strengthened by diversity, and interpreting events through varied perspectives and backgrounds to bring wisdom and insight to our community. And whereas increasing numbers of adults are reaching retirement age and remaining strong and active for longer than ever before, and whereas older adults in Shasta County deserve recognition for the contributions they have made and will continue to make to the culture, economy, and character of our community and our nation, and whereas Older Americans Month complements the work done every day on behalf of older Americans by area agencies on aging, tribal organizations, senior centers, service providers, caregivers, volunteers, and family members. Now therefore be it resolved that the Shasta County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of May 2012 as Older Americans Month in Shasta County and urges every citizen to take time this May to honor our older adults. And this is signed Leonard Modi, Chair, May 1, 2012. And I would move approval.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll go ahead and move over to the podium. To receive this today is Debbie McClung with the Shasta Senior Nutrition Program.
Welcome, Debbie.
Okay, well, we'll turn this way, Debbie. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you.
It's my pleasure on behalf of the Shasta County Board to make this presentation to you, and it comes not only just as we read it in appreciation and recognition of the value and the contribution of seniors to our community, but also I know that you serve and represent so many within our community, so we'll say thank you to you, and I know if you'll pass that on to those in your organization and on to Golden Umbrella and all the rest of the folks that are taking the time out. And thank you also for your involvement on the PSA2 Area Agency on Aging. We appreciate all of your work. Maybe a couple words?
Sure. I just want to say that we're very fortunate in Shasta County to have a wonderful aging service network that starts at the provider level. Shasta Senior Nutrition, Golden Umbrella, moves on up through the Shasta County Adult Services, which has done a wonderful job with their elder abuse campaign, prevention of elder abuse. We are so fortunate to have them. The Older Adult Policy Council, who works tirelessly to put on the soup kitchen so seniors can have power, the power to seniors. And again, the Advisory Council and Executive Board of Planning Service Area 2. And we just thank you all for your past, present, and future support of seniors in our community. They do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you, Ms. McClung, for coming down here today. R2 is a presentation for the annual report from the Shasta Mosquito and Vector Control District. Supervisor Haas, you want to introduce this one?
Better turn my microphone on. Come on down and make us the presentation. I know I see the crews have been out working pretty heavily here lately. When those warm days come along, so do the mosquitoes, don't
That's exactly correct. Good morning, Board Chair, Supervisors, and staff. My name is Peter Bonkrut. I'm District Manager for Shasta Mosquito and Vector Control, and it's a pleasure for me to give you guys to our new 2011 annual report. It's filled with a distilled version of a very busy year for us in 2011. And just as an addition or aside, enjoy our year's theme, which is a look at the past and current practices of mosquito and vector control. We've raided our archives all the way back to the 1920s and have found some really great pictures that kind of illustrate why we were formed and I think highlight our relevance today. In 2011, in terms of disease, we submitted over 389 mosquito samples for testing. We got one positive back, which indicates a pretty low year for West Nile virus incidents in Shasta County. However, it's important to remember that statewide our West Nile virus numbers skyrocketed and went from 111 cases with 6 deaths to 158 cases with 9 deaths. Seems to have transitioned to a more urbanized transmission cycle, kind of centered around Los Angeles and Sacramento in areas where it's moved into a different species of mosquito that likes urban domestic containers, swimming pools, bird baths, things like that, and also a more dense population. So that will be kind of interesting to see how we will deal with the disease going forward, because it's moved from a more agriculturally influenced disease to what looks like a more urbanized disease transmission cycle. So we'll continue to kind of see how that evolves over time. And just kind of as a reminder, since 2003, 110 people have died in California from West Nile virus. However, many more are left with debilitating lifetime ailments. Our operations in 2011, we continued with our 3rd year of our neglected pool program, which includes our blanket warrant and our aerial flyover. We identified 917 swimming pools that were neglected and found that 134 of those required treating. And we had already, and some of those were, of the 134, we had an additional 40 or 50 that we had identified the year prior. So just to kind of put that in scope, area this size can breed a couple hundred mosquitoes. So look at a swimming pool and realize that 134 swimming pools that needed to be treated is millions of mosquitoes. We've inspected over 15,000 sites and made 2,000 larval applications and then 258 adult applications, which is tens of thousands of acres on the order of magnitude 40, 50,000 acres that we've treated this year. I'm sorry, in 2011 as an adult mosquito applications. I think 2011 was probably most highlighted on the regulatory side. You may have noticed some news articles coming out in the Record Searchlight about NPDES, which is an acronym that we use that is basically National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Permit. It's a really long word, but really what it means is that we're now under a separate permit than we've ever been under before. It's a Clean Water Act EPA-run permit. And the short term of it is that it's going to cost us a lot more to facilitate vector control. It's also going to take a lot more time and labor to do vector control. At this point, it doesn't mean we're not going to do vector or mosquito control. I think that was one of the concerns that was brought up as part of that article. But it does mean that to do what we normally do is going to require a lot more time and effort and perhaps money. We have been working legislatively to see if we can get some revisions done to that Clean Water Act requirement. Something called H.R. 872, Reducing Regulatory Burdens Act. It did pass with bipartisan support in the House and did pass with bipartisan support in the Senate Ag Committee. Unfortunately, it's been put on suspension and is not going to the Senate floor as of yet to be voted on. So we have been we have been frantically writing and trying to get, not only from a state perspective, from a national perspective, some movement on at least getting a vote on that HR 872. What's in store for 2012? Well, it has started to heat up, as Supervisor Hawes mentioned, and as such, we've been in the field actually since March and February, working on doing active mosquito control. Disease-wise, we already have 4 dead birds and 1 positive mosquito sample statewide, and 5 counties have reported West Nile virus activity, and that's Contra Costa, Los Angeles, Riverside, Sacramento, and Santa Clara. So that's earlier than normal. It's earlier and more numbers of positives than we've seen, which we anticipate a busy year. I think we've gotten 2 years of reprieve in terms of long, cool springs and early and late summers. And it seems like we're going to get a little more normal of a year this year. So we're anticipating relatively high numbers of mosquitoes, and hopefully that won't transfer to high numbers of West Nile virus transmission. And then just as an open invitation, we're planning on having an open house at the district, and we encourage everybody to come down. I'll get you the exact date and information, but it will be in June, and it's in celebration of Mosquito Control Awareness Week, which is a national Mosquito Control Awareness Week. We're doing that in conjunction with the American Mosquito Control Association. So with that, I'll open up any questions.
Yes, Peter, very good report. I just wondered if our waste tire collection program that we've had over quite a number of years now has helped.
It has helped. You know, we've definitely highlighted that. All of our technicians have copies of the flyers, and when people have asked, what do I do, we've definitely highlighted that program. I think going forward, we'd really like to work in conjunction with that program a little closer, so that we can highlight it as a role that people can use to get rid of tires, because it is something that I think people get overwhelmed with quickly, and they can be pretty heavy-duty mosquito breeders.
Yes, they can.
Is there any other questions?
Supervisor Kehoe.
Yes. Thank you for this presentation. As I look on page 19 of the report, under revenues, you indicate 2258 and expenditures at 288. So there's a deficit there. Where do you make up that? Out of reserves?
Correct. We actually ate into our reserves in 2011. It was an anticipated budgeted overspender, I guess, in terms of our budget.
Okay. Is this a trend?
Hopefully not. No, it was a one-time move in terms of trying to float. Overall, we're pretty stable going forward. This year there won't be any significant transfers from reserves, and we're anticipating a more level funding going forward.
Thank you.
You do put out quite a few mosquito fish too, don't you?
Correct. You know, typically it goes between 50 and 100 pounds, which may not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about a fish this big, 50 to 100 pounds is quite a bit. So yeah, we put out quite a few fish, and they're a good resource for us. They do a lot of good work for us in the district.
I have a question. You mentioned you do the treatment and stuff. What types of treatment do you do, or preventative measures? I mean, is it spraying or something? Or
Right. I would say about 85% of our operations are larvally based, which means we're getting them in the water while they're immature. You know, from an efficiency standpoint, it's a lot easier. And typically, when we're getting them in the water, it's a biorational product. So we have microbial products. We have insect growth hormone regulators, and those are probably 2 biggest used products. We do about 15% as they're adults, but I mean, I think just common sense wise, you can see that it's a lot more difficult to control them as adults because they're not confined to one space, and you're trying to get them while they're flying. So although is the only form of disease intervention, adult mosquito control is the only form of disease intervention, the larval control is really where we target most of our activities to try to prevent them from getting to the adult stage. So most of our products are granular. We don't have that many liquid products that we use anymore.
And for the adults, the 15%, is that something you spray for them, and is that like a...
Correct. Yeah, so we do what we call fogging, ultra-low volume, adulticiding spray, typically from the truck. We also do it from ATVs sometimes. But yeah, it's normally between 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock at night, or 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when dawn and dusk, when mosquitoes typically are most active, and we try to get them at their most active.
One more.
Yes.
The white egrets that are out there, I suppose they eat quite a few of those
Mosquito fish? Yeah, or mosquitoes?
Well, probably both, huh?
Yeah, I mean, probably incidentally mosquitoes. I would assume it's maybe a little small for an egret, but definitely mosquito fish.
Yeah, I see a lot of them out working right now. So.
Yeah, and we keep an eye on that in terms of restocking areas that, because we get extirpated by quite a few other mammals too, like to eat otters and raccoons and everything. We've had them at our own fish rearing ponds. It's like a buffet line, so we try to keep on top of it and at the very least restock those areas. Anything else?
Great report. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for coming down and giving the presentation and for the handout.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Always welcome.
We'll move on to the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They may be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested person may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and consideration. I have no advance request.
I'll move approval of the consent
Second.
calendar.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. R3, Administrative Office and Board of Supervisors updates. Mr. Lees?
Nothing to report.
Really? Nothing? Then I will start with Supervisor Haas.
Thank you. One item, attended the Sacramento River Conservation Area Forum meeting down in Willows last Thursday, and we had a forum by way of call-ins, and that's becoming a pretty good way. Call-in saves you driving the distance, and went very well, and that's all I have to report today. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hartman.
Thank you. Nothing countywide.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Modi. Last night we attended, or I attended along with the members of Anderson's Oversight Committee. This is the former Anderson Southwest Redevelopment Agency, and the Oversight Committee is given the task of, I suppose, the demise of the Redevelopment Agency. The first meeting went well, and we have submitted items to the state for their consideration. Also want to thank Connie Regnell, our Auditor Controller, for her involvement in reviewing the submittals. Moving on, last week is also NORTEC board meeting. NORTEC has pared down the size of its board from 40 members to 29 members, and it's quite a large board. It's a small governing board, 11 members from the 11 counties represented, but then there are community members that represent various factions of the community, including labor and so forth. Recent legislation caused the restructuring of the NORTEC board because they no longer will allow retirees to represent the labor portion. And we did have many retirees on our board, so they must be active in the fields that they're selected from. And also, frankly, the finances have declined, the availability of funds for that board, and it's less expensive to have a smaller board. So it's, in the future, going to be 29 members as opposed to 40 members. Also attended, along with many of the members of the board here, the Economic Development Corporation's Game Changers Luncheon on Friday at the Convention Center. I just want to say, very encouraging to see so many new players in the tech field representing Redding, California. And from the presentation, it was very obvious that there are a lot of folks in Redding, California making money all around the world, and that's a very impressive thing, so I was encouraged by that. And then also attended on Saturday historic plaque dedication and presentation from the Clampers in Cottonwood. And this dedicated and kind of memorialized the Foster Hotel site, very historical significance to the community of Cottonwood. There were a lot of others, but I'll stop with that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Supervisor Kehoe.
Thank you, Chairman Modi. We all attended the groundbreaking for the new probation facility. Mr. Foreman and Mr. Modi did a great job in making their presentations, and I thank them for that. Also attended a 2-hour sexual harassment training, and I want to make note of the fact that both Mr. Adam Pressman and Ms. Michelle Schaefer just did a fantastic job. I mean, it was a lively presentation. I think we all learned from it, and I appreciate their efforts. Attended the Youth Violence Prevention Council meeting, Board of Directors, and I have that material for you. And then I made a presentation to Joe Vandiverter. She is the president of Beta Sigma Phi. They do a lot of valuable work in our community, and we wanted to recognize that. And then finally, most of us attended the EDC luncheon. Now, it was a great presentation, and we're all trying to attract and develop jobs in Shasta County and in the 3 cities. But it seems to me that the foundation of active job creation rests in part on the formation of an equitable tax sharing agreement. A job that is created in Anderson benefits the entire community, as a job that is created in Shasta Lake benefits the entire community. So if we can move forward with this equitable tax sharing agreement, I think we will be progressing very strongly towards economic development.
Don't forget the county. A job in the county does the same thing too.
Well, thank you.
We can't ever forget the county.
No. That concludes.
Well, both of you covered the 2 areas I want to cover. I just touched just briefly then again on the EDC game changer. I think what I took out of that was that we have a lot of talent and a lot of resources available here, and the private sector has the ability to create jobs, and I think that Reading is a great place to do that. And then on the juvenile hall groundbreaking, I just want to say I think it's just a great day for Shasta County to be able to step forward and begin this new project and develop a facility that will be kind of first class, and hopefully will have a real positive effect upon our juvenile offenders, that maybe we can get them turned around before they get off to state prison. So all in all, it was a very good day. We'll now move on to R4, Probation Department. Authorization for the Chief Probation Officer to apply for accept funding under the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act.
Mr. Modi?
Yes, sir.
A section of this report under juvenile accountability caseload contemplates funding a contract with the Youth Violence Prevention Council. And as previously mentioned, I represent the county on that board of directors. So I think in the interest of reducing ambiguity, I'm going to recuse in this matter.
Very well, Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
Give him a chance to speak. Mr. Foreman, go ahead.
Chairman Modi, members of the board, my name is Wes Foreman. I'm the Chief Probation Officer. I'm here today to ask for your approval and authority on several items. I have to apologize in advance in regards to this board report. It was created in the hopes that we would accomplish more in a short period of time than we were able to. Essentially, I'm going to ask today for you to approve items 3 and 4 in the recommendation section of the board report, and receive authorization on items 6 and 7. They all pertain to the 12-13 fiscal year and not to the 11-12 fiscal year. There are some adjustments in the board report that would reflect that. If you want me to highlight those, I can go through the board report for you.
I think you probably should.
Okay, so I'll highlight the ones that I have. And again, they're attempting to address all the fiscal year 11-12 items. So in the subject section at the top of the board report, in the third line from the bottom, where it starts with programs for, we should cross out fiscal year 11-12 and then we cross out at the end of that line begins with, in parentheses, CSA, in the estimated amounts of, we should cross out the amount of $508,000 and the extra there, and the word and then following the 506,000 plus, we should cross out respectively. On the second page, under the subsection YOBG, I'm going to count from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, fourth line in that paragraph. In fifth line, I'm sorry, where it begins with the council reviewed and approved. We should cross out the entire sentence. And the reason that we're crossing that out is that it's related to the sentence after that, that refers to, although there is no express statutory requirement to obtain approval, the council looked at that and says if there is no statutory requirement, then there is no need to make that approval on the Juvenile Justice Development Plan. It's related to the YOBG. So we crossed out, they elected not to make a decision on that.
Mr. Lees.
Mr. Foreman, if I might, just to make sure I understand what you said and to clarify for the board on that, there is no statutory requirement to do that. However, the Juvenile Justice Committee did approve the plan that we're asking the board to consider today. They did make that approval and are recommending that we go forward with approving the 1213 plan today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. In on page 3, at the paragraph that's just above, at the bottom of the page where it says alternatives, so that paragraph begins at a public hearing on April 25th. The council reviewed and approved, and I should say that we met in addition to April 25th on April 30th as well. And approved that we should cross out fiscal year 11-12 and the last part of that sentence, we should cross out the fiscal year 10-11 JJCPA annual report and the fiscal year 12-13. No, that's the one we approved. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, just to clarify for the board, there were two plans that are at issue. One is for the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act funding. The other one is for the Youthful Offender Block Grant. The action taken by the council involves the plan associated with the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act. The council did not take action on the plan associated with the Youthful Offender Block Grant because the council was not required by law to do so. I hope that helps clarify that. So there's two separate plans that were at issue.
And if I might, also as we go forward, understand what we're doing here is we're pointing out to the board those things that we're not taking action on today. They will be brought back, but basically, again, we're asking for, the Juvenile Justice Committee did ask to bring this to the board to approve the 1213 plan, as Mr. Cruz just mentioned. We will be coming, and so what Ms. Foreman's going through is kind of showing we're lining out those things that relate to the 11-12 plan. It's not because they're wrong, it's just because they have not been approved yet, and we will be bringing that back to the board also at a later time. And so that's what the process we're going through right now, just to be clear.
And there was also a deadline issue approving the fiscal year 12-13 plan. The requirement was to submit that plan to the Correction Standards Authority by today, May 1st, to receive the allocation. And so we approved those things that met that deadline.
Any more corrections on the report or changes?
None that I had noted, no.
So do you want to go ahead and present to us then what you want us to do?
Well, what I'm asking for at this point is that you approve the recommendations number 3 and 4 and provide the authority for me to accept the allocations in 6 and 7. And I can answer questions.
Well, I think maybe perhaps you'd like to give at least a short presentation as to what it is that you're asking to be approved here, so those in the audience and stuff would be aware of,
All right, for the juvenile justice, the comprehensive multi-agency juvenile justice plan identifies funding from the state that to the probation department to provide services in rehabilitating juveniles. In the board report on page 3, there are 4 of those programs listed. The first one is the mentally ill offender program. We refer to it as WINGS. This is a wraparound, which basically means that we surround services around individuals with mental health concerns with the primary hope of reducing the need to put them in out-of-home placement. The second program that we fund is the Juvenile Accountability Caseload. We refer to it as JAC. This is a prevention or a pre-adjudication program where we take first-time offenders and refer them to a local program called Peer Court, which manages working with these individuals and diverts their attention from criminal activity. So that's the second program. And the third program is a juvenile sex offender program. We have minors who have found themselves in trouble with the law and related to inappropriate sexual acts. And when we're responsible for supervising them, then we provide services around them, and we do some contracting with a program called Blasingame to provide some sexual education and sexual counseling for them. And then the fourth program listed is the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Program. This is a detention alternatives program. It, along with our juvenile detention release risk assessment, provides the ability to keep the population of juvenile hall reduced to a small population, and essentially we provide intensive supervision around these individuals to make sure that they don't commit new crimes to end up back in juvenile hall. In regards to, so any questions on the JJCPA?
Doesn't appear to be.
Okay. In regards to the YOBG funds, these also are state diverted funds to the to counties, the county probation departments. YOBG funds are in response to the sending a number of individuals to the Department of Juvenile Justice, and the state and many others felt that too many children were being sent to that youth prison lockup situation and not being treated well. And so their attempt was to provide some services back to the county so that we could better serve the youth here and divert them from going to Department of Juvenile Justice. So those funds are used for our in our juvenile hall. They're used for some salary adjustments, and also to provide the services for our detention release, the detention release risk assessment, and for our motivational interviewing that we train all our staff to help motivate children for better choices.
Any questions? Mr. Paul?
Thank you, Chair Modi. A question of staff, Mr. Lees or Mr. Cruz. The changes that have been made meet all of our standards for approval?
They do, and actually we're not asking to make any changes. What we're doing is we're eliminating a portion of what we're asking you to approve this morning, because we're going to bring that back at a different time. So we just went to the report, not really changing anything or asking a different approval. What we wanted to do was narrow in on exactly what the Juvenile Justice Committee was recommending this board take a look at and approve, which was just the 1213 plan. So we wanted to make sure the board and the audience is focused on just the 1213 plan. We will come back. We have to come back within 30 days, by the way, for the other. So we will absolutely be bringing the other back. It's just that we did not have enough time to put that together correctly.
No, I understand you have removed from our approval and consideration all the retroactive recommendations and the finances and report connected with 11-12 fiscal year. I guess I just want to say this for the record that I know I have made this type of statement in the past, and other members of the board have made this type of statement in the past. I object strongly to the last-minute alterations in what we're approving. While I appreciate the fact that we're not moving ahead with something that we shouldn't be approving, you noted that today's date is also the deadline for the report, and we've suggested many times that these reports come to us ahead of time so that if there are changes, there's proper time for this board to be able to review and to make certain that our vote is effective and proper. I just don't like the last-minute alterations to our reports. It doesn't give us time to go back and properly review. I understand clearly what we're doing, and I will approve this today, but I would suggest next time they come to us 2 weeks in advance so that if there are changes, you have time in another meeting to do so.
Any other questions?
Well, I'll move approval then. Staff recommendation.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. On discussion, I will just, I'll just briefly add on to Mr. Baugh's comments. I agree. I mean, I understand that some things happen, but it doesn't look well to the public when we come to the last minute and make changes like that. So please try not to happen again.
Very much understood.
Well, I agree also.
Mr. Cruz, you have a comment?
Just for clarification on the motion, when we say staff recommendation to Mr. Supervisor,
changes.
to items, we're recommending approval on items 3, 4, 6, and 7
Right.
only. Correct. And that's the second. Thank you.
Okay, with that clarification, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
Thank you.
If we could get Mr. Kehoe to return. Next item is scheduled hearings. A court challenge to action taken by the Board of Supervisors on any project or decision may be limited to only those items raised during the public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the Board of Supervisors during or prior to the scheduled public hearing. We have one item, a public hearing and approval to use supplemental local law enforcement COPS program funding. Mr. Lindsay.
Good morning, Chairman Modi, members of the board. I'm Mike Lindsay, Chief Fiscal Officer for the Sheriff's Office. The item before you is a request to conduct a public hearing for the Citizens Options for Public Safety Funding, which is supplemental law enforcement funding that the state provides, and to consider spending plans from the sheriff and the district attorney for the use of those funds in the areas of frontline law enforcement, jail operations, and criminal prosecution. I would like to make one minor change to one of the numbers, and that would be under A1, the $90,983. If you could please adjust that to $90,883, reduce it by $100. And that would carry forward to a frontline total of $20,030 rather than $20,130. Briefly, the spending request for these monies, frontline is a total of $200,030, and that would go to pay for the salary of a deputy sheriff, the salaries for frontline extra help staff, and the salaries for deputy overtime. In the jail, funding of $52,325, and these are estimated figures because we don't know the total allocation this year for sure. We were given allocation numbers up front that is our best guess right now of what these numbers will be. They may fluctuate a little bit. But the request is to use $52,325 for jail correctional overtime and the district attorney would like to request to use that same amount, $52,325, to pay a partial salary of a senior deputy district attorney for criminal prosecution. So at this time, if you have any questions, if not, if you would open the public hearing.
Any questions? Mr. Kehoe.
Mr. Lindsay, between the amount of money being used to hire extra help and the amount of money used to support overtime, what's the approximate total of those two categories?
For overtime and extra help?
Yes.
The extra help category is very small. We don't have a huge amount of extra help staff in frontline law enforcement. So you're talking maybe $10,000 for extra help.
Okay.
But the deputy overtime would be the residual from the difference of the salary of a deputy sheriff, which is about $100,000. So about $90,000 would be for deputy overtime.
So the combined is approximately $100,000. What is the rationale in proceeding in this fashion rather than hiring another deputy sheriff?
Initially, when we established the budget for this year, we didn't anticipate on receiving these funds. There were some carryover funds from the prior year, and historically the sheriff's office budget has always used those salaries to pay those funds to pay for a deputy sheriff's salary. Because we did receive fiscal year 11-12 funding, we want to go ahead and use those funds this year, but we don't have another deputy sheriff to pay that salary that we had anticipated that for. So it's practical to use that for overtime and extra help salaries this year. Next year there won't be this large volume. It would be the $109,000 would all that it would be, is all that it would be, and that would go for the salary of a deputy sheriff.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Seeing none, then we will open the public hearing. Anybody wish to come forward and speak on this matter? Seeing none, close the public hearing
Move approval of the staff recommendation?
Second.
with the one minor adjustment to the numbers.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Under discussion, I think since the DA is not here, we should give all his money to you.
Well, that would be nice, except statutorily it has to go to him.
I was just kidding. I figured they'd be listening in, they'd be running over here. So. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you.
That is the last of the items coming before the board today. There is no closed hearing. We are adjourned.